Alright everybody, welcome back to the BJJ101 Storeroom podcast. This is episode 38 and we have another amazing guest in Nick Barker. So, Nick, I know you from like meeting you at competitions and mainly the grappling industry stuff and that type of thing. But we always start with like a fairly kind of generic question. So just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about maybe your upbringing, you know, who you are, how you came to be, and then also kind of like where you were first like introduced to kind of martial arts or jiu-jitsu.
Okay, I'm Nick Barker. Wow, upbringing. I actually grew up in like a fairly small town in Victoria.
Okay.
About an hour out of Melbourne.
Yeah.
Big family, 3 sisters, 5 brothers.
Oh wow.
Smallest of my brothers.
Yeah.
I'm the second oldest, but they're all much bigger than me. I don't know how the genetics worked on that one, but they're big boys.
Yeah.
They all, we all do martial arts, I guess. I got 2 brothers that are black belts in judo. We've all done judo.
Yeah.
I think I started judo before jiu-jitsu, probably a year and a half, 2 years before I found jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
The introduction to jiu-jitsu was actually my older brother's wedding.
Wedding?
And, yeah.
What happened there?
I think it was the morning after the Bucks night. We just we'd been watching a lot of Pride,
Okay.
and we just decided, hey, let's give this a shot, and just beat each other up. And then when I came back to Australia, I was like, I'm gonna try and find some of this stuff. So I think I took up judo and did that for about a year and a half, and then sort of getting old already. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and find some of this jiu-jitsu stuff that looks pretty interesting. Seems to work well in MMA, and I think I might have had dreams of going into MMA at the start.
Yeah.
And then sort of just started doing jiu-jitsu. I remember my first class, actually. It was, I'd sort of seen jiu-jitsu around, and I thought, I don't know, it's a little bit homoerotic.
Yeah.
Dudes hugging each other.
Yeah.
If I was in a fight, I'd just punch them in the head and that'd be the end of it.
Yeah.
And then I wrestled this, I think he must have been a 16-year-old blue belt, probably 10 kilos lighter than me, and he just triangle after triangle after triangle, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to learn this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not what I thought it was, that's for sure. And went pretty seriously straight off the bat.
That was at that small city, Melbourne.
Well, there was not much jiu-jitsu back in the day. This is 2009, I think.
Uh-huh.
There really wasn't much jiu-jitsu. Black belts were pretty rare still. So, no, it's only, 13 years ago, but it was still pretty rare to find a black belt. So I started under Peter DeBeat in St Kilda. It was I think I used to catch the train, so it'd be an hour and a half in on the train for a couple of hours, and then an hour and a half home.
Yeah.
But it was worth it, I think. I enjoyed it enough to keep going back, so I think it's worth it.
A bit of dedication, a couple of hours on the train.
Yeah.
I never had that problem. I had my mum dropping me off and everything. I had the easy pathway.
And I think I decided pretty early on, I was sort of in a bit of a crossroads with my career work path, that I sort of saw what Peter was doing, and I was like, that looks pretty cool to be a job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should focus on that. So I went back to school, studied sport development, sort of focusing mostly on coaching.
Yeah.
I was already at the age 30, and I was thinking to myself, I don't think I've got it in me to be a world champion, but maybe if I can learn how to coach, then I can help people get there themselves.
Yeah.
So I sort of went that direction, and then met Kit Dale, and I still remember I did not like that guy.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, the ego on this guy, just coming in and just beat everyone up. And we started training together and started talking, and then realized that we had a fairly similar vision of jiu-jitsu. So started working a lot together. Had two clubs in Melbourne together.
Yeah.
Then he wanted to move across to the US. I wanted to get out of Victoria, and sold up our club, and I moved up here. He moved over to Hollywood to become a D-list celebrity, and and that's Then I came up here and been here for 6 years now. I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been pretty good. The weather's nice. The lifestyle is good. I can't complain.
I just want to go back a little bit. So, like through like childhood and stuff like that, were you already doing other sports or martial arts?
Yeah, I was. The school I was at had like competitive sport, so I always played competitive sport, and then played at the local clubs, football, like AFL, things like that. And I always had an interest in martial arts, so I think I started like karate at I think it was before I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And sort of loved that. Did that for.
Were your brothers and stuff doing that with you as well? Was it?
Yeah. So I had 2 other brothers that were doing it with me as well. And then sort of drifted away from sport as I sort of finished school. Just focused on work, I guess. And then came back much later. Later.
Cool. And then the first intro was jiu-jitsu at the watching Pride after the Bucks party.
Yep.
Let's do it. Let's choke each other.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think a lot of people have a similar experience with the whole like, man, the guy's smaller than me, or they train with a chick for the first time, whatever, and they get smashed, and they're like, what the fuck is this?
What just happened?
What just happened? I need to learn what this is. Yeah.
That was. I think it could go either way. Like I have seen plenty of people come in and get beaten up by someone smaller, and you'll never see them again.
Yeah.
I think they thought that they'd just come in and be able to.
Too big a hit on their pride.
Yeah. I think they just thought they'd come in and just beat everyone up because they're big and strong and fit, and then realise, hang on, there's a lot more to this than I thought.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, what was it like running gyms and stuff like that? So I didn't know you guys ran gyms and stuff like that. And what was the process to that? Like, you and Kit Dale kind of opened some...
Well, yeah, I think it started off, I went off and had some affiliates with Peter DeBean.
Yep.
And then Kit opened his own affiliate. So the way we were running it, he would coach, like, I think 2 days at his club and 2 days at my club, and I would do the same. So I'd coach 2 days at my club, 2 days at his club. And then we realized it was working really well. At the time, he was not a good coach. I really do think he is a great coach now, the way he breaks things down.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was much more focused on being a competitor.
Yeah.
So he'd come up with some techniques, would sit there, break it down, and then try and teach it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But we're very similar in the way that neither of us like to... Like, we don't really like bothering people.
Yeah.
So, chasing fees and things like that, that was our biggest weakness. So we probably should have just hired somebody for management. Yeah, it's not really our strong points. So it was a learning curve. But I feel like we got a lot out of it starting together like that.
Yeah.
So it was... Yeah.
What were kind of some of the common things that you noticed with people starting jiu-jitsu, or problems that people have, or things that they find difficult?
I think for me, I've got an interest in, I don't even think it's that interesting. I just think it's different to other people. Like movement.
Yeah.
It's really hard to learn, like, to move on the ground. It's not a natural thing, I don't think. So when we talk about the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, basics and advanced techniques, the way that I've always looked at it, if we look at fundamentals of anything else, if you look at fundamentals of math, it's like the basic arithmetic, learning how to add, subtract, and then you can apply that to some very basic math or some very advanced math. So it was the same sort of process for jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, what are the fundamentals? This is how we move on the ground, and just learning how to, like the underlying factors behind each position. And that was what I would call the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. Then a basic technique might be one of those movements, or one of those fundamental movements. You're trying to escape mount, you bridge, or you hip escape, something like that. Yeah. And then as you get more advanced, it might just be a blend of 2-3 different movements. So sort of in my head, that's how I sort of break down techniques. Yeah. Just make it basic as possible.
It's interesting, like, when you expose yourself towards learning something new, you see how much infinite knowledge jiu-jitsu has, you know, and to break it down, like sometimes you have to go and get small portion, very small portion, especially for a beginner, and break that down.
Yeah.
Right, in order for them to absorb, otherwise it gets overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
But I like to expose myself towards learning things that I never learned before.
Yeah.
Because it gives you the mindset that like, oh wow, just understand that this goes here. That's already a technique, you know, or something I learned today.
Just last night I was teaching framing. Just like, you know, when people are trying to pass your guard and you're not framing, they're going to get chest-to-chest contact and they're going to crush you.
Yeah.
So if you just learn how to keep your arms and legs in the right position and keep them back, then you'll be fine. But, I mean, for some reason, I don't think that that's natural to humans.
Being
because
on the bottom, yeah, no, big time.
it's just every time I see it, you know, a new person comes in and they just hold tight the whole fight. And it's just like, all right, yes, you're slowing your opponent down. Maybe they're taking a little bit more time to submit you, but you're not getting ahead either. So
no, the bottom position is definitely not intuitive. Like
No.
on the top, people kind of understand balance.
Yeah.
You, as an infant, you learn like balance and you understand how to stay upright and stuff like that. And it's a little more intuitive of like, oh, I just got to move forward and get past this stuff.
yeah,
Whereas being on the bottom is like, yeah, people are just like, what's going on here?
and most people play sports throughout their life,
Yeah.
whether they take it seriously or not, that's a different thing. But you know, something like a bridge and roll, like I think it's become less and less effective because people understand balance more. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I can go against somebody that played rugby their whole life, go to bridge and roll them, and they're just like, oh, I'm falling,
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, like I can't move them.
Mm-mm.
And that is more natural to be on top and just go, okay, I'm falling, I've got to
Yeah,
balance.
100%. I
It's
agree.
more like an instinct.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
definitely.
Which is easier to learn. I think just in general, like people have a more intuitive reaction when they're on the top and focusing on balance and stuff. As being on the bottom, it's very unintuitive. It's like
It's
I
like
got to
a-
put my arms in the correct posture, or my legs in the correct posture, and learn how to absorb force in a certain way. Oh, this is extremely unusual for most people.
And learning to make that blend of defense and offense as well. It's like, yeah, at the start, people, you know, do everything that they can to keep the other person off, or they do the hug in, but it never becomes offensive.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, okay, we need to learn how to cross over and actually attack and put some pressure on your opponent.
Do you find like I try to explain like the ideas and the conceptual kind of things and like the underlying rules and all the stuff you kind of talk about as well, but I find that like it's almost like this, and I've kind of used the same kind of analogy before, but like you're on page 578, right? And the person that comes in brand new, they're on page 1.
Yeah.
And you have to somehow try to bridge the information from page 571 to back towards this person that's right back on page 1. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, the bonus that we've got of being on page 578 is that we'll turn around and say, okay, well, I started on page 1, this was my page 1, but what do you think that the best page 1 would be for somebody that had never done jiu-jitsu?
Right.
And because you've seen a few people coming through, you should be able to gauge, okay, this is what you think is important for them to be trying to do, rather than, you know, maybe what you learned on your first day.
Yeah. I just mean more like I find that the conceptual ideas are really difficult for people to grasp because for you it's easier. For people that have trained, it's easy because they've got so much more experience to draw from.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody that's there for the first time, like, explaining this complex idea for them is really kind of vague and they're not really able to grasp it, but maybe just showing them the movements, like kind of Eduardo says a lot of the time, just show them one movement, show them one position. That's the starting point. But I find that's a really hard kind of balance to find, where if you just focus on the technique, they might even get good at that, but because they don't truly understand how it works or what it is, when they go to applying it, they have a lot of failure because they don't understand it well enough to actually problem solve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
do you know what I mean?
we can look at this a couple of different ways as well, because it's like, okay, so yes, they're getting failures. A lot of people, again, just being human nature, they have that failure and they're like, oh, this isn't working, so they stop trying.
And they try something else.
Yeah. Whereas for me, it's like, okay, well, why isn't it working? failure as well. It's like, if you look at any line of success, it's like there's so much failure. Yeah.
It's not one straight
And we
line.
need to use that as a tool to go, okay, well, that's where I failed. How do I fix it? And try again.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, like when people first come in, if I try and explain to them just a basic concept of something like passing a guard.
Yeah.
So I will break it into like 3 different ingredients. This is all you need to do. You need to get past the legs.
Yeah.
You need to close that distance, and you need to control the position.
Yeah.
Okay? To come in having no knowledge of jiu-jitsu, it's sort of like, oh, okay, I understand, and then they just start swinging the legs around and trying to jump on you and things like that, and it's not really working. So then we have to go back a step and sort of slowly show them, okay, well, this is how I would do it, or these are some ideas that I see people playing with. But at a beginning level, it is very difficult. So the concepts, I think, work better as people get a better understanding of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I agree.
I do like to give people a general outline of their direction. So 2 or 3 directives, okay, this is what you should be doing. Yeah. So it's something like a situational drill. I put people into side control, and I say, okay, person on top, you've got side control, cross-face underhook. Person on the bottom, you're getting smashed. Person on the bottom, your goal is either to regain guard or a reversal and get back up on top. Yeah. Person on the top, you are trying to, main goal is to control that person, keep them pinned.
Yeah.
You're looking for submission and improvement of position, whether you go to the back or the mount.
Yeah.
I don't usually throw knee on belly in there because it's sort of like, it's pretty easy just to pop up, get a knee on belly, and it's just like, okay, that's to me another halfway point between side control and mount, or side control and the back even. But giving them general outline and letting them play around, and then, I mean, my ideal first class would be exactly that. Just go, okay, this is the ideas, play around. Okay, now you've played around for a little while. I'll give you a couple of hints. This is what I would do in this situation. These are the movements that I would be looking for. Go back, give that a shot, and see if they can be successful in that.
Just to do with like that kind of mindset, do you think you always had that kind of view? Because this is something that I try to highlight commonalities, like in all the people that we talk about, a lot of them that are black belts and stuff like that. It's like, what's certain mindsets or key ideas that help people to even get to that point? And I think one of them was what you kind of mentioned before, like the way you look at it is like, why is it failing?
Yeah.
Why is it not working? Kind of analytical, and you're analyzing the stuff you're doing. Do you find that that's common, or have you always had that mindset, or is that something that people have to develop?
I think it's something like you will meet people that have it naturally, but I think it's something you need to develop. Yeah. Like I have found that people with engineering backgrounds seem to be able to do it a little bit faster than other people. Yeah. Just because you learn in engineering how to build something, but you also know how to take it apart. So it's just that reverse engineering and going, okay, let's go back a step, and find that fault, and then we'll try and fix that. If there's another fault, we'll find it again, and just do step by step by step.
Do you think that there's some people that struggle with that too?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I might be teaching something like a single leg X. Yeah. And I'll ask people, okay, well, what's the biggest problem here? And they're like, oh, you can't move your hip. Why? I don't know, you just can't move it. And it's just like, there's a foot right on my hip. This probably is the biggest problem. Yeah. So if I can start moving this in or out, I can start to move my hip. So some people will notice that problem straight away and go, oh, there's a foot on my hip, I can't move it. They're applying pressure. Other people really struggle to see that. They can maybe identify that they've got an issue, but can't actually pinpoint the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. I think that's an interesting point, because we always talk about like failure, and I try to talk about like key ideas. Failure is one of them too. Like, and you kind of highlighted before, like sometimes people use it as an opportunity or as a tool to kind of learn more, understand more, realize like, oh, this is an opportunity to like figure something out or problem solve. Some people use it as a kind of excuse to kind of go, oh, this is shit, this doesn't work. So I think this is also like another key thing that we've spoken about before here, but like your relationship with failure really dictates a lot how much progression you're going to have.
Oh,
in anything.
definitely. I feel like as you get into your sorry, you're still too young, but as you get into your 30s, you start to realize how big a tool failure actually is in success in your life and everything like that. If you're not trying things and failing, like how do you know what you can and can't do? I wish that I knew how good failure was in my teenage years, things like that, when we're even more scared, I think, of failure. And
which is funny because I think the younger you are, the more you should fail, man. You know what I mean? Because you've got time to kind of like make up for it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's peer group pressure or something like that, where you don't want your friends to see you failing, so you're gonna try everything you can to be perfect or whatever. But it's just unrealistic. You should just accept that failure. Go, okay, now how do I move forward from it?
Yeah.
And people want a lot of quick answers as well.
Definitely.
Jiu-Jitsu, it's very important to be patient. In everything, it's very important to be patient because the expert, sometimes the expert in any field, IT for example, he tells you something, you completely disagree, but maybe in 3 months' time you're going to go, I see what he was, so you need patience. I tell a lot for the beginners here because they want to know everything. Like in the first week, like it's never gonna happen, You're not playing video game,
Yeah, and I see that as well. I've definitely had students say that, oh, I heard you talking about this like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I never really understood what you were talking about, but now I get it. It just takes some time to actually,
I heard one say 10 years the other day.
Yep,
Oh my
10,
gosh.
2, 3, 10.
I was like, oh, really? I told you that 10 years all the time, and now you got it. Yeah.
That happens every year, man, because we kind of do, like, we have a little bit of, like, a kind of curriculum of stuff, and we try to revisit the same scenarios, and, like, all right, escapes and stuff, or this and that, and structure it like that, and every year, it's like, why didn't you tell us that last year? It's like, man,
you did.
You just weren't able to comprehend it, or you didn't understand it, or you weren't paying attention.
And that click, it's that click sometimes. Sometimes even he was pay attention, everything just did not click.
I'm still getting it. So I'm sure there's stuff that I've heard, like maybe Hodger Gracie say in the past, and I'm like, oh, that's what he meant. That's so simple. Why wasn't I doing that then?
Yeah. It's funny, man.
So it is pretty funny like that. Yeah.
So just like moving on to another topic, you've always been involved in like competition stuff and that type of thing. So I just want to kind of hear your kind of experience and stuff like that.
So I actually started volunteering with the AFBJJ before I started jiu-jitsu. So I think I did like maybe 3 or 4 competitions just as a volunteer.
Okay.
Before I even started, just sort of watching it. I was kind of interested, but never started it. I think it was that conflict between judo and jiu-jitsu that sort of existed. So I was very judo.
Yeah.
And then was still interested in watching the grappling. So, and I definitely watching UFC and Pride and seeing how jiu-jitsu was working. So I sort of started going in and volunteering, and it was purely run by volunteers. The referees were volunteers. Really? Everything was volunteer. And so I sort of saw the importance of building it up from that grassroots level. If we want a future of this sport, we needed more people volunteering at that time. And so I just threw my hat in on everything. If anything ever came up, I was like, yep, I'm there.
Yeah.
I want this sport to grow. Because I'd already sort of started pushing in that direction of looking at
coaching,
becoming a career.
Yeah.
I was like, well, if I don't push it and get more people involved, it's not going to be a very good. Yeah, it's not going to be a very good career path for me either. Yeah. So I guess there was a little bit of selfishness in that as well, but really worked heavily for quite a few years with the AFBJJ. And then it was basically any competition that would come up, my hand was up. I'm going to be there. I'll volunteer. I'll be marshal, scorekeeper. I'll give out medals. I'll do refereeing, whatever we need.
Yeah.
I just wanted people competing. I know it's still an individual sort of choice, but I think it's important that if you're training, and you're training with the same people every day, and sometimes I might start to come up with answers against one opponent, one training partner. I'd like to test it and see if I'm able to do that against other people. So I think it is important, if you want your jiu-jitsu to really develop quickly, to get in there and compete.
I agree.
What's the point of? I mean, there are plenty of people that do it just as a hobby. Yeah. I'm okay with that. But if you're training hard, if you're training more than 3 times a week, what for? Is it just the exercise? I don't know. I'd like to test it. You can have extra exercise on a Sunday and go and do a competition and see what other people are doing and see if you can come up with answers to what other people are doing. And then would have been about 2014, Grappling Industries started to show up, and I decided already to move up to Brisbane. So I can't remember if it was 2015 or 16 that I moved up here. And so Grappling Industries was run out of Melbourne, but we'd already organised Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane events. So I was flying out to do the competitions every other weekend. That first year in Brisbane, I think I only actually spent 4 months in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So I was up here coaching, paying rent, but only spent 4 months up here. Yeah. Just the rest of it was just traveling for competitions. It was really busy. I think I did 26 competitions in the first year I was up here.
Yeah. Wow.
So every second weekend was a comp.
Yeah.
And when I'm flying down to Melbourne and then the next event's the weekend after in Adelaide or the weekend after in Sydney, it's just like I'll just stay in Melbourne rather than fly back to Brisbane. I still got a lot of family down there and a lot of friends down there, so it was pretty easy to just go and stay with friends and family and then just go to the next event straight from there.
Yeah.
But then I've been working with the down at Byron Bay, the Australian Open.
Yeah.
Any local comps that'll show up. So you've got Phil Graham. He does the sub-only championships, so I'll always help him. And the classic as well. So the classic jiu-jitsu, which has come out of other competitions, but that's just more fight night sort of stuff. Yeah. But if there's a comp, I'll usually, if I've got the time, I'll definitely go and help out.
Do you feel like moving forward for all the comps right now, because definitely started happening a lot more comps. You mentioned like 5 or 6 just off the bat here, and I sometimes feel like that. Well, if it gets too many, they start to dilute, the audience, and then actually start working against.
Yeah, and I have spoken to other promoters about this, about the oversaturation of competitions. There's points when, even in Brisbane, there's might be a 2-month period where there's 7 competitions in 2 months. Yeah. And it's like...
But Nick, that can also... So that is a problem, that is an issue, but I think the solution of this... let's put it like the competitive side of the comps, is that I'm hoping there will be an organization like that we spoke before we started the podcast. I hope there will be an organization willing to perhaps get a better sponsor, or perhaps have the business vision of like, well, let's invest some here on prizes. Let's bring some better fighters.
Yep.
And promote in that direction, because that's become the difference. I think that worked really well in Brazil, like we're talking before, like with the, actually pretty much every state now organized that way. Like they give motorcycles, they do a circuit, the winner of the circuit, like 3 or 4 comps, wins a motorcycle. They win a ticket to the Worlds, which gets like everyone that's in competition would dream to fight at the Worlds, you know what I mean, for the expense paid. And I think that should be the aim, become a bit more... I think people need to see this more like a business,
and giving back to the community. So, I mean, it definitely, I've seen a lot of competitions, including Grappling Industries. Started off at the start, we were giving away prizes for the...
I was doing a bunch of them. I used to do them all the time.
Why not?
Yeah.
You can go and earn some money
Cash
to
prizes,
compete.
baby.
Yeah,
Need to pay the bills, huh?
I think it's great. Like I think it's going to encourage more people to come in and compete, just for that chance to actually win some money or a prize. There are competitions. There's the Australian Nationals, which you competed in 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, grappling national.
Yeah, grappling nationals. And at the start, they were offering
A ticket,
a ticket.
and then changed to $15.
Yeah, look, there was a lot of politics behind that as well. A lot of backlash to the way that they were dividing the prizes. Wasn't really aligning with the community, I don't think.
Yeah.
And the community spoke up, and then they said, okay, these are the prizes we're going to give away, and added more tickets. And then I don't think that satisfied the community either. So that's when they turned around and said, look, if you win these opens, you're going to get cash. And so they changed it
I would have preferred the
third time.
ticket, man.
Look, that's what I said at the start.
It's worth more.
Well, not only that, it's just hassle-free. You don't have to do anything, and you've got your ticket ready to go. Now you've got to go off and earn a little bit more money and buy your own ticket.
Exactly.
I mean, it's still a great thing that they're actually throwing money.
They're giving a bunch of prizes, which is really awesome.
And it was for everyone, not just set groups, which I thought was, more fair.
That's very important, I believe, for the sport to grow as well. Because you have guys that are like in a black belt level, a guy that's competing, he needs to look after his nutrition, he needs to look after his, workout, injuries, managing his time, he's probably working in the industry as well. And literally the guy's a pro.
Yep.
So he actually it's a highlight of the comp, and they need to get paid, you know what I mean? Like in 2022, you know what I mean? Like,
and so you bring up some very good points. So number one is getting a professional sort of, I don't know if you'd call it a league, but giving it some like a professional feel to it, even where people are getting paid for their effort and time. More and more people are taking jiu-jitsu as a profession. They need to earn a living. You need to pay your bills. You need to put food on your table. We need people, as we get more and more spectators into the sport as well, we should be able to give those pros something back. The BJJF has their Black Belt Pro League with prize money.
Yeah.
But apart from that, there's that whole prestige of winning a Worlds.
yeah.
I mean, I still think it's a pretty big thing if you win those Worlds. It is, and a lot of people will make a career out of that as well.
Yeah.
Then they can go and do the tours of seminars. They can start releasing instructionals, things like that.
They could get both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could get. They have the merits. If they want something, they got the merits. They work hard for it. So that's what they should deserve it anyway, right?
I mean,
to use what they acquire by their effort.
Yeah.
So that was won by the sweat. I'm talking about like, man, just for you as a price to come here, to effort, to take the time to do your preparation. I think that's and should work together.
And there's the financial investment that all the athletes are making as well. By the time you've got a black belt, how much have you paid in fees? You've bought gis.
Yeah.
You've travelled around and competed.
Flights, accommodation.
Everything like that. You've spent thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
There should be a way of recouping some of those costs.
Yeah.
I really do think it is. But the other one that I wanted to touch on was like with the oversaturation, if there's 5 different companies and they're all offering the same product, like they're all running IBJJF rule sets, they're all running everything the same. It's like, why, take a leap, go out, do something different.
Sure.
I had a fantastic suggestion just last week down in Sydney. And the suggestion was to have a competition which was basically the reverse of ADCC, where it's points in the first half, no points in the second half. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting concept. And he said, because then you can get somebody coming out and they'll try and score really quickly off the bat. They'd hit that takedown. Now the onus is on the person on the bottom. You've either got to score in that first half or you're going to have to submit. So it's going to make more action. But I think it's an exciting sort of change in the rules.
Yeah.
You know, people need to start thinking about things like that. How is my product different to the next company's?
Good point.
What am I offering that's going to attract people, rather than just offering the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Brisbane's pretty good on this, where we do have, you know, at least 3 competitions that I can think of, all running different rule sets, or
Yes.
four competitions with different rule sets, and it's sort of for a competitor, it's sort of exciting as well to go and change and be, can I compete at this in this rule set? And you get guys out there, and you know, I'm thinking of Brisbane as well, but somebody like Bob Frias, he's so good at playing the rules.
Yeah.
So good. Like
Yeah.
you just don't meet people.
PhD playing the rules.
Yeah, he's brilliant at
Yeah.
it. It's,
Well,
I'm sure it's frustrating to his competitors.
Yes.
Yeah, big time.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but yeah.
And I have heard that, but it's just like, hey, they're the rules.
Agree.
You've got to be able to beat him in that rule set.
Agree.
And it's hard because he plays them so well.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant at it, where he can go to ADCC, he can go to IBJJF.
Absolutely.
He's playing the rules just as well in each, even though they're completely different.
Could not agree more with you.
Yeah, and so as a competitor, I think that should be pushing people as well and going, okay, well, can I play in that rule set? Will my game work in that rule set? What do I need to change for that rule set? And it's going to develop your jiu-jitsu as well.
Do you know a funny thing when we talked in the beginning about like learning, difficulty of learning? It's not an instinct, you know, once you're on the ground. Last time we'd be on the ground, probably 4 years old, so it's a whole catch up that has to be done. I think there's a big issue as well, a big flow in jiu-jitsu where people, they're not trying. I always, if I go play something, if I'm going to do a new venture or anything like that, the first thing I'm going to do is study the rules.
Yep.
Understand what I'm trying to achieve, what are my goals. And people do jiu-jitsu and they don't look for the rules. They don't understand what is a sweep. They don't understand. So when they literally throw themselves on the floor and then the guy come on top and they just score, but they don't even realize, you know?
Yep, you just scored. We're like, what? How? What did I do?
Yes. And then I think this is something that I always think it's super important, like for people in general, like just don't go with the trend. Oh, my friend told me this is awesome. Okay, my friend told me, now I feel like doing, great. How can I do this the best way? What are the rules so I can play this game the best way and learn more from the rules that I can apply, you know?
Again, I think that's why we're sort of now seeing these athletes coming into jiu-jitsu that might not have the best technique, but they have an understanding of how to play a sport. So they play that sport and they beat people that are far more technically advanced than them, just because they have an intimate knowledge of it as a game and a sport, rather than going, I'm going to trade off technique for technique. It's like, no, I'm going to avoid that technique and I'm going to cartwheel over the top of you and try and take you back. Then I'm going to score some points. And then I'm just going to crush your face until you tap. Yeah. It's like, it's ugly as far as jiu-jitsu goes, but it's very effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that can work too.
And it can even play the referees to believe that they're actually trying to do something.
Oh yeah, the advantages. Definitely.
Yeah,
you see the faces start to contort, and it's like, wait, but you don't even have a proper grip. You're never going to submit somebody like that. You're just making the face like you're looking like you've got effort.
Making the face.
You definitely see that all the time as well.
So many different strategies to being successful in the sport. That's like I have had this conversation with a lot of people as well. It's like, oh man, but you're better than the guy, or this and that. But man, it doesn't matter. Performance is everything. Yeah. Like on the day, on the time, whoever applies their strategy best, or whoever succeeds in getting to the point scoring scenarios or whatever, whoever gets to what they need to get to, they're the ones that win.
For me,
you can be more technical, you can be more explosive, you can be faster, but who does the best then? This time on the mat is what.
Definitely.
And some guys, look, if I was gonna ever fight Anto, like, you know, and hopefully that never happens.
Me too. I've hoped that never happens.
Here in training, it's already happy for me. It's already my challenge. But the best technique, it's actually avoid. Do not engage. It's the best.
And you get some amazing players who can do that. So I mean,
Correct.
Kit Dale is phenomenal at this. Like, he can just shut down things as he goes. And it's like, I can't
Has
even...
amazing balanced low center of gravity as well, like to stall a bit, like, without, still emotion.
Yeah, and I've heard people say this. It's like, I've rolled with Craig and I've rolled with Lockie, and, they'll let me play around and I'll get to a position, I'll hit a sweep, and then they'll beat me. With Kit, you just can't move from the get-go. It's like, I can't get to a guard. Like, my feet are just dangling around uselessly, and he's filling up more and more space until he passes. It's, again, learning how to play that game, and it's just like, that's his game, and he's so good at it.
Absolutely.
And I actually don't think I've ever met anyone as good at it as him. Then you get people like, I was rolling with Craig Jones last weekend, and it feels like you're getting ahead. It feels like that.
It's a trap. Yeah.
It's a trap. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've mounted him. Oh, I'm tapping. Wait, I just got to mount. Why am I tapping? And it's him just playing around with you because he knows, okay, well, I can let you do whatever you want. You're not going to submit me.
I call that controlled freedom.
It definitely is. That's a good one. It definitely is. Whereas he's giving me the freedom to move around, but it's all under control. He knows exactly what's happening. But, Anton, I've seen your game be the same, where you're competing at different rule sets every other weekend.
Yeah.
And it changes. I don't know if you're doing that deliberately.
Nah, man, my style's the same.
Oh,
Just trying to finish everyone.
I know that, but it's like it's like I still see you playing within the rules all the time. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. I'm thinking the last boa, it was like that. You got shot in for the single and got caught in that. I can't even call it a guillotine. Headlock. Yeah.
Headlock, yeah.
And then they gave the points to Charles because you hit the boundary.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh.
I mean,
rough.
I've had many, but man, I just keep trying. Like, this is a thing. Like I think as a competitor or as an athlete or whatever, like you're gonna lose sometimes, you're gonna win sometimes. That's a part of the game, and you just have to continue to go and compete. And I don't think like me losing these things or whatever like affects like the merit of your ability. You know what I mean? Like if you're good, you will go and all right, you didn't win this one, but you might win the next one.
Yep.
Or if you if you're consistently competing and doing well, that shows the merit of the athlete or the competitor. So. Man, yeah, I know. I mean, I've lost many fights which I should have won, or many fights that I was better than the guy, or won many fights. That's a part of competing, man. You think you're better, or maybe you are better. Maybe if you trained in the gym, or if you did another 100 fights, you'd win 90 of them.
Yep,
that's life, man.
Yep,
you lost.
But like it's one thing that so we had what was the competition here last weekend, the Brisbane Open or whatever it was. It was a QBJJC one.
Oh, yeah.
But I had some students go in that, and one of the girls came back and she was a little bit upset. I won 2, I lost 2. I said, so, but at the end of the day, like, you had fun, you learned something, and she's like, well, no, it was really good, and I learned a lot. And I'm like, well, it also took away 2 silver medals, so it's, you lost, both of the losses were in the final, and you can't complain about that. And to break it down even further, I'm just going to be brutally honest. No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares if you win or lose.
Yeah.
No one cares.
You do. Yeah.
It's just you. Yeah. It's all down to personal. So for me as a coach, like I'm always telling my students, go out there, give it a shot. I don't care if you win, lose or draw. We come back in and we start again on Monday. Okay, so you come back in on Monday and we look at what happened and we start fixing those problems.
That's the funny thing. The loss actually brings more learning than the win.
But a lot of people that do compete or start to compete, they feel that way. Because we've had students here say exactly the same thing. They're like,
what are you gonna think?
I feel like I've let down the gym and all stuff like that. It's like,
it's no, it's you.
It's
all you.
And I think that's actually a good thing. Like, you should have pride in like trying your best and trying to win.
Definitely.
But like, don't beat yourself up if you don't succeed. Like,
again, it's just a failure. You'll use it as a learning tool. You get back in and you go, okay, well, how do I fix what wasn't working on the weekend? And I'd have students rock up to my house after a competition. The competition was on the Sunday. They'd be at my house 6 a.m. on a Monday, no pad in hand, ready to go. Like, okay, let's work on these problems. This is what happened in the competition. And I'm like, you are my favorite student. Because you're doing my job for me. I don't have to sit there and analyze the issues that you had, for starters. You're being self-critical. And but being realistic, you're not beating yourself up. You just come back with problems and gone, okay, how do we fix this?
It's funny, I say that all the time for the students to try have that understanding and bring some, like about themselves, you know what I mean? Like questions that actually happen in the game. And I found that people find this very difficult, you know what I mean, to have this self-analysis. Some reason. Not many people can do that.
No, definitely not. And it because it's hard to look at yourself and be critical.
Yeah, doesn't feel nice.
It doesn't feel
all
nice.
the time, but that's how you improve, right?
It does, yeah,
That's how
definitely.
you can improve when your weakness.
Definitely.
It's the only way.
One of the best things we did with talking about like competition was with Martin Froman.
Yep.
He came in because he was just so like open about it. He's like, man, even this year when we did the Queensland State Championship, he competed as well and stuff, and he went alright. And he's like, man, even on the Nogi day, I didn't want to go there. I didn't feel like going.
I woke up, didn't want to go.
I didn't want to go, and I feel because he was just so honest about it. And I'm like, the thing is like anything that at all is going to be beneficial for your life is generally challenging or difficult, and like you just have to make a choice to do that. And whether it's starting competition the first time or training with somebody that's a difficult train in the gym, like we always generally now look to avoid the most challenging, difficult things in life, but that's the things that bring the most, like you said, it's failure, it's whatever. It brings the most growth. It gives you the most opportunity, right, to get something out of it. That's what you have to seek out.
I do often use this as a little analogy for my students when I see them trying to avoid those hard roles. I'm like, if you were trying to be like a pro basketballer, and you rock up down to your local court. So on one court, there's a 5-year-old playing. And he's got some very good technical stuff happening. He's shooting hoops. Okay? On the other court, you've got LeBron. Now, which one do you choose? It's like, me, personally, I'm going to go LeBron every time. I'm going to get beaten every time. There's nothing I can do with that guy that is going to make me get ahead. But then, after 6 months of getting beaten by LeBron, I go play somebody who was on my level 6 months before. I'm going to thrash them. I'm going to make them look silly. Because I've had that experience, and it filters down. It just filters down. So I'm always looking for the harder ones.
Yeah, I think that's a funny thing, and it's like kind of like a paradox to life. Like you're either going to get front-loaded difficulty, or you're going to get it on the back end, and it's based on what you choose. Like in those
I'd rather it at the front
situations, and that's what a lot of people pick. Like, all right, you want easy, first, 10 years of experience in jiu-jitsu, or the first 5 years is easy. Well, now the fucking back end's going to be hard. And it's whether it's you, a strong, powerful, athletic guy that can just rip on kimuras for the first 3 or 4 years of jiu-jitsu because you're stronger than guys, and then you haven't worked on anything technically, and after that, the next, if you continue, which is a lot of the time why people kind of give up on
We had this conversation, sometimes the guys who get to black belt, higher belt, and they only have this technique, and they like people start catching up with the defense and everything, they stop. Because they have no idea
keep up
game
anymore.
They're not looking good, They haven't.
Or there's people that like consistently, it's a smaller guy or a flexible guy or whatever, and they consistently just go with everyone that bashes them, and now like after 5 years, they're so well rounded and they're so skilled in so many different scenarios. Like they're difficult for everyone.
Yep.
And it's whether or not you take the hard work first or you want to take the easy route early, and that's a paradox to life, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you were going to become a doctor or a lawyer or something, you're going to spend years at uni, no sleep, eating 2-minute noodles.
Busting your ass,
and then later on, when you get to retirement, it's just like, wow, now I can actually really live. This is amazing. This is so easy. It
took a lot of hard work to get there.
A lot. And I guess for us watching students come up, we can see who's putting in that hard work early. We can see who's trying to avoid the hard work.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious. And then as they're improving, I would much rather personally be rolling with the guy that has tried to backload
Yeah.
it's going to be an easy roll. It's like, yep, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
You've spent no time working hard and trying to get those little gains. You were trying to get these big gains at the start, beating up again, beating up that 5-year-old. And it's just...
You're superior in every area. That's why it's so easy. But go and train with someone that's just as strong, just as they don't do well.
And it's like, if I look at it as jiu-jitsu, I don't need jiu-jitsu to beat up a 5-year-old. I pick him up, spin him on my finger, and throw him against a wall. I don't do that. But you know what I'm saying. But then I go up against somebody who's bigger and stronger than me. If I haven't put in that work and actually tried to develop some jiu-jitsu, I'm just going to get thrashed.
Yeah, big time. I want to go back to something. So... you guys were talking a little bit about like money in the sport and competition and that type of thing. I don't like, this is something that I'm kind of, again, I talk a lot of stuff about culture and all this type of thing, and it's not going to be too, crazy, but I find that a lot of the merit that people used to get kind of like admired for doesn't actually matter as much anymore. And this is specific to like sports as well. So I find like a lot of guys that are just popular, they're the ones that are now like getting a lot of, DVD sales or
like somebody like Craig Jones who hasn't won anything since 2015.
Okay, you can use that example, but like obviously the guy has a different thing that's very exciting for people, which is a submission artist, and he finishes people in jiu-jitsu. So I do agree with that. Like, if you took it based on merit. But then it's the excitement factor. Because there's guys that are even less amazing with their technique and finishing people that are, they're doing more seminars, they're doing more competitions, they're getting invited to these things, and it's more based on like how much.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, OnlyFans too. Yeah.
Nicky Rod, Craig, Kit, they all got them.
Yeah.
No, but this goes everywhere. Like every sport, they have like volleyball players like that are not as good as the other ones, you know what I mean? But they have OnlyFans and they are making a lot more money than the guys that actually have the merits, and achieve things in the sport. So,
I've seen UFC fighters come out and say, "Hey, I'm earning more now doing OnlyFans than I was at the UFC."
Yes.
So it's
new times, eh?
Yeah, and I guess it's down to your view on it. It's just like, if I could get paid for taking some photos, I'd get paid for taking some photos, but no one's paying for this. Yeah. So that's the reality.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I think it's the excitement of those submission artists as well.
Yeah.
So, if Craig had have tried to have sold his DVDs after his first, I think it was his first ADCC campaign, he lasted about a minute against Homolo, got Americana, I think it was. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was Kimura. But if he'd tried to sell DVDs after that, no one would have been interested.
Yeah.
But then he goes back and he keeps on chipping away and chipping away. Next thing you know, he's submitted Leandro Lowe and Murillo, and it's just like, whoa,
the perfect releasing time, marketing-wise.
Yeah. Well, it's when everything's sort of taking off with BJJ Fanatics.
Yeah, that was like the starting point of like all the DVD stuff getting massive again.
Same as Lockie. If we'd sort of looked at, I'm pretty sure he might have his first campaign at ADCC. I've got a feeling he had Marcelo.
Okay.
And it's like, who wants that first round?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination sometimes. Like if you analyze, for example, Craig Jones, he has a super fun game to watch.
Yep.
It's like it's interesting to watch. He market himself after this achievement that is like, submitting these famous guys, Leandro Law, Leandro Law and Murillo, like at a massive, like big main stage in the world for the art. So there was that. So there was a perfect timing after a perfect kind of like win, right? Releasing his material on something that was getting to know by the world, which was all these leg works and etc., which he was ahead of the crowd, you know what I mean? And so becomes a trend.
Yep, and maybe he's put himself into a bubble, but for me, if I was giving him advice, I'd say ride that bubble as long as you can.
Sure. I'm not saying that.
Man, I'm clapping my hands.
When that bubble pops, like, what's going to happen? But if you write it now, it's like
Yeah.
you're going to set yourself up.
for later. For
And there's
sure,
one more
yeah.
thing too. I think his charisma, his personality.
Oh, definitely.
I think he adds up a lot. You know what I mean? I think it's that whole package. I think that worked for him really well. Not necessarily. This is not like a cooking recipe. Has to work for everyone the same way. But for him, that catapult him, like, you know.
You know what, I'm trying to, like, I agree with what you guys are saying, and these are like two kind of specific examples. Like, probably him and Gordon are the most like saleable, marketable dudes in jiu-jitsu, and they're, you know, beating everyone. They're doing really well, and they have like certain personalities. One has a very fucking like uber, you know, like a messiah kind of individual that I'm the best, I'm better than everyone, which he is. He's
Full of
beating everyone.
confidence.
Yeah, full of confidence.
Yeah.
And the other one's kind of like a laughy, funny kind of, you know, roly-poly, laughable
He is
guy.
proper larrikin.
Yeah, proper larrikin, takes the piss of everything.
Yeah.
Nothing's too serious. But I'm more talking about just in the general kind of view. Like, there's guys that are multiple time world champions, like in ADCC champions, whatever, that they don't sell DVDs,
So,
or they sell very little, or they don't get that many seminars, or they don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still think there's guy even within Australia. Like, I don't do very many seminars. I'd like to. Yeah, if anyone wants to do seminars, hit me up.
Okay,
I'm welcome to do them. But there's guys that are, you know, in Sydney and Melbourne and stuff like that, you know, might be a purple belt, or, you know, they've competed here and there, but they're doing seminars like every month and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's wrong. Maybe they're just really good at marketing themselves or whatever.
I think that's what it...
And this is what I'm kind of getting at. I think with like the way we've become like this virtual world, and everything's online and stuff like that, I think a lot of people buy into that more than the merit of what people's skills are now.
And again, I think it's like with the growing popularity of jiu-jitsu, whether it's down to the expansion of events like ADCC, or if it's down to UFC, people see in jiu-jitsu now, like people that wouldn't have been exposed to it 10 years ago are seeing it now. And it is that excitement. They see somebody like Craig going in and submitting somebody, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Then they're seeing more and more leg locks working. And now, you know, you'll get the guy coming into the gym that's done 2 lessons, and all of a sudden he's doing these intricate saddle entries and trying to go for heel hooks. It's just like, dude, just slow down. Slow down, learn some fundamentals.
Yeah, that's everyone. Like when are we gonna do heel hooks? When are we gonna do this? We can do that, but like, you can't stop people from mounting you every time they engage with you. So let's start with that.
So it is interesting like that, but you know, the name that comes to my mind straight off the bat is actually what's his name? Hobson Mura.
Okay.
Hobson Mura. Like when I started,
world champion.
I started jiu-jitsu. He was a god
all the time, man.
Now
I
you
used
just
to go to stadiums, like to watch jiu-jitsu competition back in Brazil when I was, you know, teenager, and like, you know, stayed the whole day. But he was a guy that like, oh, I need to watch these guys.
I have to.
Like, yeah, it was just amazing.
But I mention his name to even purple belt now, and they're like, who?
Who's that? Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man, you play this sport. Like, what other sport would you play and not know anyone in the sport? If you play AFL, you know the AFL teams, you know players.
Yeah.
If you play basketball, you know the teams and the
more
players.
history of the characters and stuff.
Yeah, and it's just it's strange when I talk to people, and you see it all the time. Like Hobson Mura to me was just a phenom. Like, he was just absolutely amazing. A little guy using these fantastic techniques.
Very unique positions. For sure, man.
Yeah, and then there's, you know, there's other guy, like I always will reference Terade. Like, he's one of my favorite players of jiu-jitsu of all time.
He released his movie now. Do you know that?
No.
He released a movie at some cinemas. I think it'll be the end of the month, 30th of
I'm
October.
definitely going to see it.
Yeah, it'll be soon on all like Netflix and everything.
I'm going to have to learn Portuguese.
Yeah.
I think they'll get the subtitles for sure. But I mean, yeah, it's a huge thing in Brazil. They just have the grand opening for the movie and everything, like, you know.
It's to me, it's like he's had so much influence on jiu-jitsu today, and no one knows him.
I trained with him.
Oh, lucky you!
It was really nice. Not only on that perspective, but on a perspective of taking back on the days an elite sport and someone seeing a kid on the street like get in trouble, and look after cars and go, hey man, do you want to train? You know what I mean? And then giving the opportunity for someone, because he started a trend that there's a lot of guys all over the world that came from the slum without nothing, give perspective, give job, It's beautiful.
Yeah. And we sort of spoke about this early, or before we started the actual podcast, about that whole thing of identifying that talent. It's like I don't know if he identified the talent in this kid, just as in this kid's going to work hard and hustle to do what he needs to do to
they did.
To
I
get
can tell you
through.
that right now. They did. Because the kid was a world champion every belt.
Yeah, if I give him an opportunity at something, can he transfer his drive and his willingness to hustle into that new field?
And not only that, there's no other option.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
jiu-jitsu or nothing.
Yeah.
That is, I think, is also counts. But he had he had this. He was really good at early belts, world champion every single belt. Not many people is a world champion every single belt, but he was like a gun. You know what I mean? Like, I never trained with a guy that can do triangles so quick to both sides. Like, I never came across anything like that.
I think I definitely tried to emulate him at the start, and then realized that I'm not Teddy. I can't do exactly how he does it, so I'm going to have to come up with my way of doing it.
You mentioned something that's very interesting. I tell a lot of people this. Because they see someone, like famous or someone, they try to mimic the guy game without looking at what their capacities are, you know what I mean? Without thinking, you have to look at yourself. That's that chat about, like, try to understand what your needs are, what your weaknesses are.
Yep.
Try to build on what you're good at. Like a puzzle game, eh?
Definitely, and I always tell people it's like, you can definitely watch people and see what they do and try and break it down so it works for your body, because one, you're going to be a very second grade version of them if you just try and copy them.
Yeah.
But you can be the best version of you, so you should just focus on what you can do. And two, if I'm looking at some techniques and it's like, okay, well, what's Craig? Okay, if I'm 4'10" and weigh 100 kilos, I'm like a little ball, and I'm looking at what Craig Jones is doing and going, oh, I'm going to do that. It's just like, that's unrealistic. It's just unrealistic.
And you can look at trends. This is pure trends, right? So, for example, you look at the time, what was the name of that guy? Kenyo Cornelius. Like, there was a Kenyo Cornelius trend. There was the 50-50 Meow Brothers trend. Just trends like fashion, anything, right?
Yep.
Even like gourmet burgers to Mexican. It's all about trends, right? So when there was Kenyon Cornelius, right? So you get a 40-year-old guy that cannot even hardly can put his shoes because he's completely inflexible, and then he's gonna do a worm guard because on trend. Like you just go, man, what are you not seeing? What I'm seeing that you're not seeing here. You know what I mean? Like, so that kind of thing. Like, if you follow trends, sometimes you go into a completely opposite direction to actually make your game anything good.
Yep, definitely. It's something that Kit and I would always talk about, is like trying to use your body against somebody else's body rather than using set techniques. For example, if I'm against somebody that's shorter than me, I try and be really long. So I'm trying to stretch them out, doing Toriander passes, things like that.
Or close, we don't let them move too much.
Yeah, but then if I'm against somebody who's bigger than me and I try and Toriander pass, they just sit up and they're choking me or something like that. And it's just, okay, that's not working. But if I get in really close, use body locks and knee cuts with no space for them to get their underhooks back or to pummel a foot back in, then I can start doing that. And it's like, we can use those techniques that, say, our hero or is using, so I can try and emulate those techniques, but I've got to use it at the right time. I've got to be using it against the right person. I can still have a good leg lock game. I can still have a good triangle game or something like that, but I've got to be using it against the right people. I'm not going to be trying to triangle somebody. I wouldn't try and triangle Andre Galval. The guy's just got nothing. Like, I'm not going to reach my legs around him for starters, so it's just not going to work for me.
Yes, you gotta understand reality.
Yeah.
And you have to think strategically as well. And like, go there, it didn't work the game. Okay, next time I'm gonna try play this game.
Yeah.
And in saying that, like you mentioned, that Anton, like it's just that occurred to me. I was waiting to say this. You said, "Oh, he always adapts to the rules. He adapts to the rules, but he has a certain quality that allows him to. Is more than that. Is that he is able to play like professional level, really high level, from every single position.
Mm-hmm.
Not many guys can do that. So you can see Anto playing half guard bottom against
shocked me. That actually shocked
Kenan
me.
Duarte, like half guard bottom,
Yeah.
like in a high level. Then you can see him play close guard. Then you can see him play passing open. And so it's more than only adapting to the rules. Like rule set is actually he can play at every single level. You know what I mean?
Having that
Which is very unique.
a complete game, because you'll get guys that are guard specialists and then they get
Correct.
on top and it's just like, well, they just sort of stall it out from the top. They got
Correct.
their sweep and they don't know how to pass.
Yeah.
So this was actually, I'd sort of only really known of you at a local level at the start, and that was you taking down, passing, lots of Estima locks and things like that, but it's a lot of it from the top.
Yeah.
And then seeing you get put on your back or playing off your back, and I was like, hang on a second, he's got a guard?
Yeah.
It actually shocked me.
I
'cause
do
was
more
like,
guard in training though, because I'm polite
of course.
with people.
Well, I do as well, because my guard sucks. So it's like I'm far more comfortable on top. But so
No, my guard's probably better than the top, man.
yeah,
To be honest.
I don't know personally. I just feel my guard's weak, so
Yeah,
it's just like I'm just going to play guard because it needs a lot of development. So
Yeah.
let's just get on our back and let people try and pass and
That's how
see
you
what
get
I can
better.
do.
I think
Yeah.
actually this has made like I've suffered because of this in competition stuff. Like I find like a lot of guys that have got like their A game kind of thing and they stick to it, they do better in competition because
Yep.
it's so tight with what it is.
Yep.
I think a lot of the reason that I've not done as well in competition is I don't give a shit.
You're just going to be
I'll
free
just,
and
I'll
play.
just do whatever and
Yep.
then see what happens. But the problem with that is it just allows too much variable.
Then they can start launching into their A game,
Yeah.
and then you're
And
a
even
step
you might be able to
behind
deal
or-
with it
Yep.
or whatever, but like it's close fights and there's an advantage or they score 2 points and
But there is a positive side of that too.
Yeah.
Because you can actually, after a first match, and the guy does his A game and whatever you put on the plate didn't work, you have the capacity to come to a completely different game
Yeah.
that actually could work really
Yeah,
well. Not
definitely.
many people
So
have that.
So then when they've exposed their A game to you and you can go off and come back even if you've got another match on that same day against them, go, okay, that's what
Yeah.
they're going to be looking for. How do I start to shut this out and launch into my attacks?
that's generally what happens though. Like
Yeah.
the guys that I fight more regularly, like I've seen a shift too because like the amount I improved over like COVID and all the time off and everything is like nobody saw, but I think I've improved a lot since then. Like this is my understanding. Like I was just thinking about things a lot, and I don't think I ever kind of thought about it as deeply or contently before, and intently. Sorry, but like I was like now I'm starting to actually understand things like on the base level. And
Yeah.
then I'd like, all right, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Because I just thought about it for a little bit. So I find that like the guys that I used to like lose to very closely and all these things now I'm like very confident and very comfortable and I'm consistently winning guys that like before would give me a hard time. So I'm excited for continuing to compete, and there are certain guys that I've competed with this year and stuff that I lost because of errors and mistakes and things like that. But I honestly believe that like if I get another opportunity, I'm going to beat them. If I every time, like this is just my mindset and the way that I've always approached everything. Every time I get like another opportunity to fight them, like they don't, like you're saying, they don't fight the same version of the person from before, and I always seem to kind of just
And by the way,
snowball into a point where it's difficult.
by the way, it's locked in 2024 will be in Las Vegas. ADCC is
Yeah.
confirmed.
Yeah, awesome.
Las Vegas
Trying
is
to
the
get it.
stage again.
Not me. He's just saying the stage. No,
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to
Yeah.
go.
No, it's confirmed.
Mo
the stage, the
Jassam's
main
just
stage.
been, Mo
Yeah.
Jassam's head organizer again,
Yes.
and they're going back to LA. Oh,
Correct.
sorry, Vegas.
Yes.
Awesome show this year.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I think that's
fantastic.
It's just gonna get better and better. I
Yeah.
think from here, guys, we're on a massive rise. Jiu-Jitsu is becoming like mainstream. There's a lot of people now. I think podcasts had a massive impact, on
Huge.
people's selling Jiu-Jitsu, like the benefits that were very intrinsic to the martial art and the values, and that's resonating really well with the hard time that we live right now. the lack of socialization, the lack of very important values for life for kids, teenagers, and adults as well. And socialization, having fun is everything, you know, like just feel like an artist.
Yeah, I guess Vegas is the place for that to come out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
At this stage.
And I don't know. I think competition's difficult, dude, and strategy's difficult, and you just get better every time.
I mean, coming from judo to jiu-jitsu, so at the start, watching a lot of judo, now it's getting harder and harder to watch.
Huh.
It's just, just my opinion on it, but but at the start, I was sort of looking around and seeing, okay, well, I'm just getting beaten in the gym all the time, so let's have a look at some other fighters that may have been successful that came out of strange places. And the one that came up was actually Jimmy Pedro. And I would sort of watch him and go, hang on, how's this guy beating people that are far more accomplished than him?
Yeah.
But it was his strategy. His strategy was just great against them. Very simple, but very effective. And I don't think anyone was looking at it the same as he was looking at it.
Okay.
I think jiu-jitsu sort of, we went in at that level of going, okay, we need to have a better strategy than the other person. We're still playing a game. Yeah. It's not about just, I mean, it'd be ideal if as a competitor you could just go in and just submit somebody straight off the bat. And be like, cool, now next, please.
That's what I usually try to do.
Yeah. It'd be great if it worked out every time.
Every time, exactly.
But it'd be awesome. But then it doesn't. And you get somebody that you are competing against with closely, and you're having these little back and forwards, and then it's just going to come down to who's got better strategy, who's going to score that point at the right time, who's going to get to the dominant position at the right time.
I think like I've spoken about this on some podcasts before, but I think my mental approach was a bit of a problem before. Yeah. It was just like, I was like aggressive as hell, and like, I just want to bash you, and I just want to do this. I don't really care about the points, and I just want to beat, I just want to win. And I think like, unfortunately, like you can't have that approach at like high level or with decent competitors. Like, yeah, all right, you can beat the 5-year-old kid on the basketball court, but you're not beating LeBron James like that, you know what I'm saying? And even if they're not LeBron James, even if they're just on a similar level as you, like, it's unrealistic to think that you'll go there and do that with everyone. Mm-hmm. Can you do that eventually? Yeah, possibly. But even in doing that, there's a different strategy. It's not just brute force, smash through, and I'm going to win. That you have to, you know, like you're saying with Craig, he kind of lulls you into, oh, it's fun. Oh, look, I'm passing, bang, triangle, whatever, right? Or, you know, Kit's approach is much more like, you know, defensive. He lets people attack, and as they attack, they open space for him to just creep closer and closer. Yep. But there's still a level of, like, strategy applied, whereas I didn't really have a strategy. I just went there and was like, I'm going to fucking smash you, and that's it. And you can't do that.
So, as we move more towards the professional, like, realm of jiu-jitsu, you will see people get in, like, mindset coaches.
Yeah.
They'll be seeing sports psychologists to figure out these little issues that they're having inside their own head.
Chemists,
as they
everything.
fight. Plenty of chemists out there. Lots of hardworking chemists in jiu-jitsu. But even on a lesser level, you're getting dietitians in there. You're getting proper strength and conditioning coaches.
I just started since the 80cc stuff. Now I'm doing like proper cardio sessions.
Yep.
That was probably the thing I struggled with the most. Like, I've not done like an actual preparation for a competition ever, really. Like, in terms of physical preparation.
Especially for something like 80cc, which would be considered a very professional grappling event. You are going to need to be a professional athlete.
100%.
At your peak.
And this is like, you know, Gordon's always talking about this, and sort of, maybe the way that he talks about it isn't the best, but very negatively towards the other athletes, going, oh, you're all bums, you're not taking this seriously, I'm in the gym 7 days a week, what are you doing? You're not lifting, your diet's terrible, you're not taking the right supplements. Is right. If you're going to be on that professional level as an athlete, you're going to have to be as professional as every other athlete. Unfortunately, we're not getting paid like a NFL star or something like that. You're not going to earn $60 million in a year doing jiu-jitsu. Not yet, anyway. Maybe one day. But
maybe if you do what Gordon Rice say that no one's doing.
Yeah, definitely. And then everybody's going to get more professional. The level's going to go up. He can't be, like at the moment he is, but he can't be the anomaly of the only person out there that's a professional athlete. He's technically and physically more advanced than anyone else out there. So he can't be the only one.
No.
People will have to start to catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
It will.
I think the records that he's made will stand for a long time, but you know they will get surpassed, and hopefully, it'll be good for the sport.
I saw what happened to Mika Galvão. It's just it might be not in the next 6 months, might be in a year, but it gets to a time.
The guy's 18. He's got so much time. He's going to be one of those ones we're talking about in 20 years' time he was one of the greatest of all time. Like, I don't doubt it. He's so gifted and such a hard worker.
Mika, no?
Yeah, Mika.
Yeah, but you still can be surprised. You know
yeah. He's not unbeatable,
exactly.
and it just got proven.
Correct.
And we know that Cade's not unbeatable either. So you know, everybody's going to have their day, and it's like going back to what Anton already said. Who performs on the day at that time? They're the best.
Another thing that is important to do, I do a couple of times as well. We try to do it, we don't do it all the time, but I think it's important. Analyze. I like to analyze the other guy's games where Anton's going to fight, because there's always a pattern. You know what I mean? They don't. A lot of people, majority of people, they have their A game. You know what I mean? Majority of the competitors, I would say 95% of competitors, they have their A game. They might change a little bit, but it's very, very similar, especially high level.
Definitely, and you'll see it. It's like getting even down to getting specific grips before they start launching their attacks. If you can start avoiding those grips, then maybe you can avoid that attack. Yeah. Maybe they've got secondary grips or tertiary grips or whatever, but at the start, it's like about watching them and seeing how they're setting up things. I think the setups are probably more important than the actual what they're doing, because if they can never get through the setup, they can't launch that attack. And I if I was preparing a student for a super fight, I would definitely watch a lot of their opponent. Preparing for a tournament style competition, a little bit harder, because you might end up being on opposite sides of the bracket, you can't guarantee you're going to fight them. And this is what makes jiu-jitsu such a difficult sport. You're going to rock up to a competition, you don't know who you're facing. If you've got more time, like if you look at something like MMA, you've got months and months and months to prepare for one person. It's to me, that as a coach, that's easier.
Yeah. Do you know a very interesting thing? I spent like an hour. I have a cousin. He is like he was the first world champion. Like with the first worlds happened in '98 in America. His name is Vinicius Cruz, Vinicinho. He's from Carson Gracie. He lives at Carson Gracie's house, and he's a coach in Abu Dhabi a long time. And I was having a conversation with him on the phone. He said something very easy. He said, you know, the guy has a game. You know, you study the guy. The guy's high level. The guy will come with that game. He said, instead of you try to exchange with the guy, and you come with something completely different, unexpected, but not after you. I'm gonna try this. You know, when we always say, I'm gonna try taking him down. If that doesn't work, because the guy is used to that happening all the time. He's good at that, not being taken down. So then the guy is gonna try something else. He's prepared for that. But if you, as soon as you get there, you pull.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You change completely the zone right from the get-go. The guy gets much lost. I found that was very, very interesting point.
We you know, back to Kit, because I can reference these Australians really easily because I've actually been at the fights when they've been in the comp. So it's very in my mind. But Kit developing, you know, white, blue, even into his purple belt, it was a very simple game. Takedown, pass guard, Kimura. And it seemed to happen on every single fight. Then at purple belt, I remember, I think it was the Pampax anyway, he's come out and we'd sort of worked on a little bit of a difference in his game plan in leading up to it, and he'd been training differently. He came in, pulled guard triangles, and it just shocked everyone because no one was expecting that. They were all getting ready to go. Here he comes, he's going to shoot. I'm going to keep my hips back, arms out in front, get some grips, stall him out. I'm going to pull guard, and then he just runs in, pulls guard, and triangles them.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what? That's
Didn't
not what he
expect.
does.
Yeah.
So that does work. You can throw in those the spanner into their works where they've prepared for you and your A game plan, and then you throw in something different, and it's just like, well, I didn't prepare for this.
Right from the get-go,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
When they get completely off guard.
I'm sure it'd shock people if Anton came out and pulled guard.
Or how?
Oh yeah. That'd be a bit of
Flying
a shock.
submission.
yeah, flying triangles.
Anton is very different. Like he's very different in this. The way he can spot, it's almost like I made a joke, you know, like it's the brain's a bit of autism, but in a good way, you know, like he thinks his submission can come from everywhere. Like he's like you 3 steps ahead, he's 6 steps ahead.
Yep.
And he can get you from many different submissions. That's why if you watch his fights, there was a few steamers, but then it started to become completely like now it's everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, I probably started watching you were a purple belt. I don't even know if we'd met, but I definitely saw you at competitions. Roll in Kimuras, roll in toe holds, a lot of that. And I was just like, it was just so dynamic.
Yeah.
You just throw your body out on somebody and just grab a submission on the way through.
Yeah.
And it shocked everyone. Yeah.
Anton has this thing like you tell him, man, you need to improve at the back. This was back on the day. Oh, you need to improve at the back. In 3 weeks, he'll be a master at the back.
Yeah.
Not many people have that. You get some point that the guy was not good at, and the guy will master in that short amount of time. You know what I mean?
I think it's the mindset you might have as well, Anton, where it's like you're not coming in and going, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, I'm going to play a pure jiu-jitsu game. You still have that competitive nature as an athlete.
Yeah.
And that is always going to give you an edge. You know, playing rugby at the level that you played, it's like you are going to be, it's going to be ingrained in you to be competitive and push that athletic ability to its limit as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like you were talking about with Gordon Ryan and stuff before, like, man, I used to just rely on my, like, rugby conditioning and stuff. And then since I stopped playing rugby, that's when it kind of, like, conditioning went down. But, like, man, before I'd play rugby and compete and do everything, and, like, the strength and conditioning, the pre-season cardio, all this stuff, like, that was what allowed me to be so competitive also, that foundation of athleticism and physique and everything. And, of course, I'm kind of like he says autistic. I'm just like an interested guy in terms of like the techniques and problem solving. So I don't know. I always found it interesting. Oh, you try this position and they do this, and I come up with weird shit to do as well all the time. So it's just a bit of fun in a game.
I think that having trained with so many high level guys, I think that there's either somewhere on the spectrum or some OCD.
See? Finally, someone agree with me.
It just seems to happen. It's just like, and I think it's your, the guys on the spectrum and the guys with the OCD. It's that attention to those little finest little details that you're taking that no one else is taking. So, I definitely think that most of those high level guys are somewhere on the spectrum or having some pretty severe OCD. And, like you look at the GOATs and it's just like, you can see
you're on the
it.
spectrum. All of you jiu-jitsu legends, you're all on the spectrum.
Not that that's a bad thing. You've learned a way of dealing with it and you've used it to improve your life. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's always, I learned some things from Anton that I try to do nowadays because you're always improving and you're learning. I learned from blue belts. If the guy does something good, I'm going to ask him, happy to do it. But he does something that I took from me because before, like the Brazilian way, like you're good in jiu-jitsu at the gym and then a guy, this is back on the day, even nowadays not like this anymore. But it was, when it was, underground, someone come from another gym, then you have like to face this guy, you know what I mean? Like
the Mac and forth.
So you have to always do your A game.
Yeah.
Right? So your room for trying is between that kind of, it's not all the time. So Anton, and that comes, I think, from this, being an athlete from other, from rugby. In training, we're always trying. I learned that from him. Like, he always trying. He's always perfecting. He's always try to push to new areas, And I think that since I start thinking that way, I think it helped me think that way more. And since I use that for me now, my game started to go a little bit bigger, you know what I mean?
I've spoken about this before, though. I think I'm able to do that here because there's not as many other guys that are like high-level competitors. I think
True.
if you went and trained at a gym where everyone was full clip a lot of the time,
You're
don't
going to
the
have
same
to be
freedom to do
forced to go to your A game
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to keep
100%.
up.
just to keep up, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bet. Like I always talk about this. Like everyone's like, oh, but there's good and bad. Like, oh, but you should train. Look, man, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how you train. There's going to be benefit to it and there's going to be negative to it.
Yep.
And the benefit to training or teaching or whatever, and where you're the higher level individual at the gym, if you're disciplined, is you are going to get good at everything because you can just play with people.
Yep.
Now, if you're at a gym where you're super high intensity, full clip, all that, you're just going to iron sharpens iron. You're going to get super fucking tight on whatever the shit you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's pretty difficult to explore new things, though.
Yeah.
If you're training hard stuff all the time, and you're not really exploring with people, really difficult to add new areas of your game.
So
But that's the catch.
I would go specific training and just get those people and go, okay, you're going to put me into a scenario
Yeah.
and we're going to play it out from here.
Mm.
That way you're able to, it might not be as sharp as if you were doing that with somebody at a very, very high level, but
No, of course, we do position
Yeah,
sparring.
but it's
Talk
the
like
same-
a Shark Tank kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, but it's the
start
same
on your
as
back, start
yeah.
in this
No, we do
position,
this,
start in
we
the
do
triangle. Like, of course, you have to
and
kind of.
that's probably the only
manage
way
it.
that you're going to
Yeah.
get to play at that highest level rather than
they
just
start with
roll
a
in
much
and-
more beneficial position. Absolutely, but
Still.
at the end of it, like
Still.
you can't recreate someone's level. Like if I started in Craig's triangle, he's going to finish me. You know what I'm saying? If I start with 99% of the people here in the triangle, I'm still going to escape.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's not the same thing.
It's a different thing. Yeah. But I guess, and it's kind of hard there because it's like you are trying to build up a skill level, but without that higher skill level for you to compete against, it's
But
going to be harder
that's the
to.
catch-22.
What's working on them might
Yeah.
not work on Craig.
100%.
So I do see this, and somebody like a student of mine, James Wooten,
Yeah.
he phenomenal leg locker,
Yeah.
just great, and so we worked a little bit on tightening up his leg lock game, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looks and the way he enters and the way he finishes. But then there were all these other weaknesses in his game, so it's like, okay, we're going to be getting you into wrestling. We're going to have you passing, and we're going to have you back attacking, and just working on those things. Get rid of your leg locks. You're not doing them in the gym at all anymore.
Yeah.
We know you can leg lock everyone here. So what's the point of keep on what? You're just going to do that day in, day out until it's pedestrian, and you're just like, oh, okay, let's go through these motions, and they tap and we restart and I do the same thing. It's like, no, you're going to be learning how to pass. You're going to be learning how to attack and back. You're going to learn how to wrestle and take people down. These are the weaknesses that I see in your game. Start developing them now. Don't wait till 2 years down the track. Don't wait 6 months down the track where it's starting to be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Because, you're pulling guard against somebody who's a phenomenal passer or a great wrestler, and they're just crushing you and you're not getting those leg entries. You need to have a more developed game.
100%. And that comes back to the stuff we were talking about before. You want the front loaded difficulty or you want the back end difficulty? Like,
Yep.
I did that stuff when I was a blue belt. Like, what's a straight foot lock? And then you do straight foot locks and toe holds and everything for, 8 weeks or something. And then you get good at it and then you try something else. It's just what you got to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you can't do the self-assessment by yourself, and I think you did that, like the way you act is similar to what I do. Like the coach has to come and say, hey, if you want to get better on top, you're not going to start going on the bottom all the time. Let's just play on the top here for a month, 2 months, and kind of like guide someone to actually get there,
And another student that was just phenomenal at triangles, and every competition like we'd go to, after a while I'd say to her, you're either winning by submission or you're losing by points.
Yeah.
No one's submitting you, which is really awesome, but you always have the same game plan. You pull guard and you triangle. They pass, you regain guard, you triangle, and it's just this constant thing. So I said, for the next 6 months, you are not going
Allowed
on
to
your
do
back.
triangles, or you're not allowed to do.
Yeah. And now, she's 14, 15, and now some of my blue belt students are like, oh, she's passing my guard. It's like, that's because she put the time and the effort into actually learning how to do it and apply it, and she's
See how it works?
Yes.
That's the process to evolving and getting
Yeah.
better. Yeah. Picking something. Yeah.
It's kind of hard, like for someone. I think there's a ego thing that they have something that works really good, right? And then they're gonna let that go. I always tell these guys, look, when you're actually gonna look to improve on other areas, your game's actually gonna go down. You're gonna look bad for a while, in game wise. But that's how you're gonna go up and much bigger than when you were before,
Again, it's like tracking that line of anybody's success. It's not a straight line going straight up. There's lots of ups and downs.
True.
There's plateaus. That's the nature of it, and you have to be willing to accept it. I mean, Jimmy and I use our little saying for people who are learning something new. It's like you have to embrace the suck. You suck at it, embrace that. Enjoy the fact that you suck at it. You're going to get beaten, but that's okay.
Interesting.
It's part of the process.
Have a laugh. I always say,
Yeah.
man, you suck. Have a laugh.
Yeah, doesn't
Have a
matter.
laugh for yourself.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
Embrace the suck, everyone. We might call it there. It's only about 10-15 minutes to 11, so
Oh, you got a class?
I gotta go teach some people to embrace the suck. So
I think I've got it. My first private starts at 12. So
well, man, Nick, thanks so much for coming in.
No,
Really
thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it, and thanks for sharing your ideas and embrace the suck, guys.
Nick,
At least take that from it.
Nick, I appreciate. I think, look, this is really nice. I really enjoy this project here. That we have people that we don't have the opportunity. Like I see you in comps. Like you actually work capacity. I'm with Anto, like in a work in like a stressful situation,
Yeah.
but we never have the time to sit down. You know what I mean? Have a friendly chat and understand a bit more. See where each other comes out and get to know each other more. I think this is a super nice part of this what we're doing, and thanks for coming. That was really nice to get to know a bit more about you.
it was
honestly.
fun. Thanks for having me.
No,
Thank
thanks
you.
so
Good
much for
chat.
coming on,
Thank
man.
you.
Woos.
And whenever you want to come in for a role, man, come in.
Thank you.
Help with this Shark Tank.
Thank
Shark
you.
Tank, yeah.
Help
That's
with
it.
anything, man. Okay.
I don't want to roll with him.
I'm polite with him, man.
He's
very
actually.
nice.
He's,
No, because I've got a lot of friends that do trade here. They always tell me it's like this is the nicest, most gentle role in the
Exactly.
gym you could imagine.
yes, it is.
Until
it is.
you upset me. Then I'll go.
Yes. Yes, but
It's
yeah,
usually the
it's
way.
actually it is
Yeah.
the most. It's actually quite a. Is it going to be a technical? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's, which is
Gentle
what we need.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Not when I compete, but in the general, we're very gentle.
When you compete, it's violent.
Yeah,
Violent
it's
jiu-jitsu.
violent jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that was always why I struggled so much with winning competitions, is because it was just like a level of anger. There wasn't much like composure involved. It was just
Yeah.
like go crazy. But I think like if you go with the more gentle kind of approach, like you actually play the game more and
Yeah,
set
and
up
you
things.
make it playful.
Yeah,
Enjoy
Can
it.
see more.
Yep.
yeah, big time.
Don't just try and win.
I know that's my problem.
In
Gotta work on
training.
it, Yeah.
In
No, in
training.
training I'd
Yeah.
play games, whatever. But in competition, I need to tone it back still a little bit.
Yeah,
Not
it's
go
still a
nuts.
game. It's
Yeah,
still a game.
I don't
Yeah.
see it. See it as a fight.
It's a fight.
All right, Nick.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.